Takuma Sato was an entertaining driver in Formula 1, and I always had a bit of a soft spot for him. I always saw him as a bit of a cult hero, as although he loved to get his elbows out, he was a kind and humble person off the track. So with that said, what happened to Takuma Sato? Although he had ambitions of becoming a racing driver since the age of 10, Sato would actually take up cycling in school and would be involved heavily in the sport, becoming a national cycling champion. This might be shocking to many, but he didn't even start karting until the age of 19. The mature age beginner was a natural, as he would win the national karting title in 1997. He was so good that Honda decided to immediately back him for his career. Sato wouldn't waste any time in moving to Britain in 1998 after a singular appearance in the All Japan Formula 3, as he would start off with brief appearances in both British Formula Vauxhall Junior and Winter competitions. Sato would spread himself across 3 different categories in 1999. They were Class B of the British Formula 3 Championship, Europa Cup Britain, and Formula Opel European Union Series. He would finish in the top 6 for all these categories, even with limited appearances in the British Formula 3 Championship, but his best overall position was second in the Europa Cup Britain. He did also win a one-off race in the Asian Formula 2000 Challenge in Macau. Although Sato did have a tiny stint in Formula 3 France, his main focus for the year was in British Formula 3, this time in the main class. He did struggle a bit early, but once he found his footing, he was impressive, collecting 4 wins with 6 podiums overall, and this was enough for a top 3 finish, and he was rewarded for his great performances with a 2001 test driver role for BAR Honda. 2001 was to be a very special year for Sato. He was to truly show his class with another year in British Formula 3, as he would prove to be dominant. Although he would need 5 races to collect his first victory, he would soon go on a season best run of 5 wins out of 6, showing scintillating form. He would eventually win nearly half of the races he would compete in, as he went on to become clear number 1 in the standings and enjoy a well-earned title. To add to this success, he was top dog in the prestigious race in Macau and was the winner of the 2001 Masters of Formula 3 race. With such an outstanding 2001, Formula 1 was knocking on his door, and Sato secured a drive with Jordan for the 2002 season. It wasn't a good start to life in F1, as immediately in the second race of the season, he would hit into the back of his teammate Giancarlo Fisichella. 7 retirements out of his first 11 races was not a good start at all, as reckless driving and reliability issues were the main causes of the DNFs. He was particularly unlucky at the Austrian Grand Prix, where he was taken out at high speed by Nick Heidfeld in what was a scary accident, but he was ultimately fine. Although he took his no attack, no chance mantra a little too seriously at stages, Sato would also show great potential in the Honda-powered Jordan, and his best finish came on his homeland as he scored 2 points thanks to a 5th place finish at the concluding event at Suzuka. Although he only did score 2 points for the whole season, these points were crucial for Jordan to finish 6th in the Constructors, meaning more money for the cash-strapped team. Jordan would have finished 8th if not for those 2 points. Fisichella scored the other 7 points for the team and outperformed Sato comfortably in 2002. With Honda purely concentrating its efforts on BAR for 2003, Sato was dragged over as well to the team, and he would be the test driver for most of the season. A falling out between Jacques Villeneuve and BAR allowed Sato a drive for the final race of the season, again at his nation of Japan, where he would do very well and finish 6th, obtaining half of Villeneuve's overall 2003 points tally in a single race. He was to obtain the full-time gig for 2004. The year 2004 would be a bit of a breakthrough year for Sato, and it was definitely a breakthrough year for his teammate Jenson Button, who was best of the rest aside from the dominant Ferraris. Although Button was still clearly number 1 driver, Sato showed off his exciting driving style with a lot of overtaking, albeit in the opening 8 races would only yield him points in 2 of these. Even so, there were good signs, like his front row Crowley effort at the European Grand Prix. The 9th race of the season would prove to be Sato's best, with a career best 3rd place, after some tenacious overtaking in the back end of the race, as well as a good strategy call in not pitting under the safety car. He wouldn't score points again until Hockenheim, which would start his run of 6 top 8 finishes in the concluding 7 occasions. This late charge saw Sato crack into 8th overall with a solid tally of 34 points. But as mentioned before, Button was simply better, doubling Sato's points tally easily. Sato stayed with BAR in 2005, and if you thought Sato would build on his good 2004 season, you'd be wrong. It really couldn't have been much worse, with BAR giving Sato what would resemble more of a tractor than a racing car. To add to this, he missed the Malaysian Grand Prix due to illness and got DQ'd from Imola due to an underweight car where it was allegedly discovered that all fuel had been removed. The same would happen to Button. To add to the pain, Sato and Button had to serve 2 race bans. Sato would score his only point at Hungary before getting disqualified again at his home event thanks to a collision with Jarno Trulli. It was a poor season overall for Sato, where he had little confidence as well as many errors for the season, which saw him ousted despite BAR being taken over by his main backer in Honda. He scored 36 fewer points than Button and was dominated in all categories. It just says it all really. Sato was hugely popular in Japan, and as a result of fears of public backlash, Super Aguri, effectively a Honda B team, was created and immediately signed Sato for the 2006 season as first driver. As expected, when you're driving a chassis that's 4 years old, the team were perennial backmarkers for the season. Things did get a little better though from the German Grand Prix, as Sato would begin to outperform the Midland drivers in some sessions, and by the end of the season, even started to keep pace with the Toro Rossos. Still, Sato went pointless, but was easily better than all 3 of his teammates. 2007 was to be Sato's best year in a Super Aguri, and although he couldn't convert a Q3 quality performance into points, he was battling in the midfield for the first half of the season. He scored Super Aguri's first ever point at the Spanish Grand Prix with 8th, and put in arguably his best F1 drive ever with 6th after what was one of the most memorable overtakes, as Sato in the lowly Super Aguri was able to overtake Fernando Alonso's title contending McLaren. Performances may have waned in the back end of 2007, but his 4 points were good enough for 17th in the standings and helped Super Aguri beat out Spiker and an excluded McLaren in the constructors. With financial issues plaguing Super Aguri going into the 2008 season, they would only last 4 races. Sato's last race for 2008 would be his best result of 13th at the Spanish Grand Prix, as his team were denied entry for the Turkish Grand Prix by Honda CEO Nick Frey. Sato then sought any kind of refuge for his F1 career and became Toro Rosso test driver for the second half of 2008. He participated in a number of tests and was vying for a Toro Rosso seat in 2009. Unfortunately, Sato lost out to both Sebastian Bourdais and Sebastian Buemi. This was the last we ever saw of Takuma Sato in F1. So what has since happened to the gifted Japanese driver? He would be absent from racing in 2009, but he moved his talents to America, competing in the IndyCars in 2010. He would, however, need to wait 2 more years before securing his first podium in IndyCars, claiming 2 of these in 2012. He also made appearances in Formula Nippon and the first ever World Endurance Championship. Sato did nearly win the Indy 500 too, but an unsuccessful move at the final lap caused Sato to spin. Aside from brief appearances in Super Formula in 2013 and a cameo in Formula E, Sato has stuck to IndyCars ever since. His patience paid off in 2013 too, where he scored his first win in the category at Long Beach. Sato would not crack into the top 10 of the overall standings until 2017, where he came 8th. His highlight for that year was winning the prestigious Indy 500. And from then till 2021, he has mostly been within the top 10 of the competition. He won the Indy 500 again in 2020 and joined an exclusive list of drivers who have won it multiple times. And as I am recording this, he's in a battle for a top 10 finish in the standings in 2021. He will likely be back again in 2022 as he looks to win a 3rd Indy 500 or perhaps even winning the whole series. Takuma Sato at the age of 44 still looks fantastic, and for me, he could still go on a couple more seasons at the very least. What are your thoughts on Takuma Sato? For me, he was one of my favourite drivers to watch growing up. Subscribe to the channel and like the video if you enjoyed it.